You ready?
Sure.
There we go.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Educational Programs and Services Committee. I'm the chair, Ellen McCormick, and with me I have JP Prego, and Trina has let us know that she is not feeling well this evening, so she will not be attending. We do have ex officio Melanie Cunningham in attendance, as well as some other board members sitting in the audience, so welcome to all. All right. We'll start with the approval of the March 21st Educational Programs and Services minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Is there any questions or discussion? Fantastic. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. Motion passes. Next up, long awaited TSI update, Mr. Flanagan. We are excited that you're here. No pressure.
All right, well, I'll try to deliver here after, this is my 12th day, so hello everyone. For those of you who haven't met, I'm Frank Flanagan, I'm the high school principal. I think I've seen a lot of you, but thanks for listening to this. Had the opportunity coming in, and I think what's really great about, just to preface this before I share it, is coming in, I've been through ATSI and TSI prior. I'm very familiar with the protocols, processes, and just the data pull and the data review. And being able to come in and really go through this for the first time, it's kind of fresh eyes on it from my perspective. I'm gonna report out a lot of the data. I have a short agenda. I'm going to kind of highlight some of our enrollment numbers, just to give you an idea like how these percentages are being calculated, so you have a roundabout number of how many kids it is that we're talking about when we talk about percents, and updated data for passing grades and attendance as of marking period 3. We're going to talk a little bit about benchmark data. Thank you, Sarah, for your help with that. I have a few notes and some things that I'd like to share related to the data and what I'm seeing, and some of the things that we have as our targets. And then I want to connect that to our monitoring plan for FRCPP. Did I say it right this time? I always say it wrong, but FRCPP, I want to connect it to that and kind of go through
Thank you.
future-ready comprehensive planning process.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did know what that was.
So, obviously, this is going to drive forward an updated and revised TSI plan, looking at our data here, and plus with our identifiers that we've been we'll say recognized for that require some attention for 24-25. So ultimately, this will lead to taking the current plan and revising what we're going to do for next year. So this is the current enrollment. 9th grade. There's 282 Reg Ed, 47 students with an IEP. 10th grade is 272 and 36. 11th grade is 239 and 46. And 12th grade is 273 and 47. So as we frame, now this was as of 4/12, so there's movement each day. So it's been about 6 days. So there's movement, like occasionally we get an enrollment, we get a withdrawal, etc. So this was as of 4/12 where this data was pulled, which was after our third quarter grades finalized, just for frame of reference. So once the third marking period closes, the grades were finalized on 4/12, which allowed us to pull the quarter 3 data at the end of the third quarter. So we had the final grade to look at. So the review of the data, and prior to me being here, and this is a big slide, so I'm going to start out by saying that the data that I had pieces of this data to go on, but the way that I started was I actually walked all the way back to quarter 1 and I redid all the numbers. And I ran all these numbers by hand, student by student, both for attendance and for achievement. So the top part of the chart, and this is again, and this was slightly tweaked as of 4/17 because I added this column over here about attendance, but the top part is the percent of students that are passing every single class as of when the grades finalized for that marking period. So these percentages up here are every kid, meaning special ed, non-special ed, GIEP, 504, everybody lumped in. So, and one of them were identified for TSI as one of our goals, so you can kind of track how many kids are passing every scheduled class. Now, what they don't incorporate, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, is students who are completing credit recovery for courses in the prior year. There's no real way to quantify that in the current grade data. We have to talk about that isolated because students might have a credit recovery course or two that they're making up, but it's not reflected in their current grades for this school year for any given marking period. So you can kind of see where the ranges end up here, and this is an average for quarter 3 of their marking periods averaged together. So if the year ended on 4/12, how many kids would pass the class? Not including the fourth quarter grade and finals. So 88.65 are freshmen, and you can kind of see the numbers go down. One of the identified areas for us is special education, which you can see down here. There's a 16% gap here between our regular ed and our special ed as far as passing all grades. So that I'm going to talk about later, because that's going to kind of drive forward our TSI plan for next year. One of our targets is for 12th graders, for our graduation rate, passing all current classes for special ed students. That's also for one of our goals that we're measuring. And our target for third quarter was to hit 75%, and you can see we got to 74.46. So we are within 0.5% of our target. By the end of the year, we have to get to 80%, which for 12th graders, which we're confident we can get there based on some things I'll share later. The attendance data is another piece of interesting information that I want to kind of explain. So what I did to run this report was I set the range to 6 unexcused absences. So per marking period, and it's cumulative. So you see 9th grade, 1.41% had 6 unexcused. That 1.41% is also included in the 5.31. So the increase isn't 5%, it's 3.7%, because this is cumulative. So by the time we got to the end of quarter 3, 11.7% of the 9th graders have 6 or more unexcused absences, just 6, but 0% have 18. Which would be as if we stack all 3 marking periods and we look at a 10% absentee rate, 10% of the year, there's 180 days. How many kids have 18 or more unexcused absences? 0%. 0 9th grade students have that. 0 special ed students have 18 days at this point that are unexcused. So this number is really interesting because I did it as of the last day of marking period 3, which is 4/3, April 3rd. These are the real numbers down here for these special ed students. 1 had 18 or more absences that were unexcused. 2 11th graders. 3 12th graders. So very low numbers. Now 6% appears to be a lot, but there's only 47 students that have an IEP in 12th grade. So 3 out of 47 had 18 or more unexcused days. Attendance is one of our target areas for TSI, which is partially why I'm driving this point home at our current data, so that we can kind of craft. As we talk about MTSS and we talk about goals for next year, attendance needs to be one of our areas that we identify. You can see that with 12th grade, 20% of the students have 6 or more unexcused absences by the end of quarter 3. That's very, very common because a lot of our 12th graders drive. So as you see the percentages increase, 9th and 10th graders have district transportation that get them to school on time and district transportation to get them home. 11th graders, they start driving, some of them by the end of their 11th grade year. 12th graders, a lot of them are driving. It's the second half of the year. A lot of them have already, honestly, probably if they've worked really hard in the first 2 marking periods, have satisfied their grade requirements, have high enough averages in their classes that they've passed them in theory for the year, and they start to, I'm just going to say, senioritis kicks in after January, and they start to get a little bit, more bold with the days that they aren't in. So that's why your numbers are generally high.
And we're not being questioned on that.
No,
So, I mean, yeah.
it's overall attendance target.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
This is the number that really, the 18 or more is really what I'm going to be looking at the end of the year. Like, what does this percent end up being after marking period 4? And so all this data is going to get reran once the grade's finalized after finals. So I'll get a full year grade average, and we'll get a new percent for each of these subgroups.
So do we have a target for attendance for the TSI?
So the issue becomes so every year it changes in that cut score. So we don't exactly know. I do know and can tell you 6 students, special ed students, that's not going to cut it.
It's a big number.
That's a big number for kids
6%.
absent more than 18 days of school. That's a lot of days of school. So
It doesn't seem like it because it's 3 kids, but the 6%, because our IEP number's at 40-some for the grade, that's a big percent that probably won't cut it for TSI.
Gotcha. One more question. I'm guessing you don't have the data, but have we looked at this
or can we look at this from past years? to
Yes.
See where we're going?
I didn't pull that, but you can, you absolutely can.
Okay.
So part of the, as we craft the TSI plan for 24-25, part of what I do want to do once I get the end of year data is it'll be real easy to do a final year, like year one grade. So it'll average all the marking periods, it'll give me the end of year grade from last year. And then comparing probably the last 2 years end of year grades with the current end of year grades, and also the last 2 years with the current attendance, to show from coming out of the pandemic, essentially, what does our trajectory look like? And that's the next piece of data that I really think we need to look at and see if we've had any improvement or if it's remained stagnant. For this presentation, I did not pull that at
That's
this
okay.
time because I just, like I said, it's
That's okay.
day 12 and I didn't dig deeper past year one.
I'll give you the day 13, all right?
Yeah, so that's definitely a piece though that is important for us to consider though, for
Yeah.
100%.
So it was 72.2% for special education, the attendance number. So if, when we're looking at 18 days or more, we don't know if it'll be the same next year. That's the challenge.
Yep.
We don't know what the cut score was. But what got regular attendance on it was we were at 61%, 62% of special ed students that, had less than 18 days. And so we've got to look at that.
Yep. And that'll be the comparative number that we're going to kind of roll through and look at the last 3 years. So for me, this is a really great comprehensive look and taking for me to kind of plan out with our team how we're going to start moving and kind of combining this with some of our Linkit data, which I'm going to show in like the next couple slides here, and what our, tested, we're going to say our core tested courses and what their growth looks like, I think is another point that we need to talk about. But at the end of the year, when we see what our final poll is and where we shake out here with the grades and with our kids that end up with 18 or more, because that could be these numbers could go up. I mean, really, right now I feel really good about Reg Ed because the numbers are really, really low. But the special ed, if that goes up anymore between now and we still have 6 weeks of school left, this number could go up. So until we really see what it ends up being, we're not going to be able to necessarily identify and target if there's patterns, meaning is it, specific classes that they might not be coming in? Is it latenesses? Is it case managers that we can kind of tie into it and talk about as far as support? Is it a specific pattern as to days of the week? For example, with some of these special ed students, there's a lot of things you can start really kind of looking at is if you pull the kids who hit this, and it'll give me their whole year attendance in every day that they missed, and you start trying to look for patterns as to why that could be.
Right.
And then you can kind of narrow down, okay, if there is a pattern, how do I break the pattern, and how does that get connected? So that's going to be the next conversation about attendance. Coupling with this is our goal related to benchmarks in general and benchmark performance. So again, thank you, Sarah, for helping get this data quickly. We just closed our spring benchmark on April 12th for Form C, which is this column right here. This gives you the proficiency in advanced percentage for all students, then special ed students, in both ELA 9 and 10, math, which is Algebra 1, and science, our keystone tested courses. So what this does is it ends up giving you when they take the forms, this is 3 versions, they take 3 benchmarks per year, fall, winter, spring. Spring benchmark was completed. It gives you, again, the proficiency percent, and then it gives you a weighted predicted proficiency score. So this last column here that's in kind of in a peach color is what percent, based on Linkit, of our students taking these benchmarks this year are predicted to score advanced or proficient when they sit for the Keystone in May. So this number, set all these aside, this number is really this is really where you put your money at. Okay, so
What happened?
ELA is 64%. Believe it or not, that is not a horrible number for ELA for first-time test takers. That's a pretty good number. Meaning 2/3 of your kids are passing that on the first go-around. Great. Math. Although our performance doesn't look great, we have a 23% predicted proficiency rate on this is all students. This is meaning all student groups. This area is really, I mean, in the tri-state area and nationally, this is where you've seen the biggest dip coming out of the pandemic. And that's why a lot of schools are focusing on math performance and content gaps and things like that that have been missing. So this is really a target area for us as math. Biology is kind of hovering right in the range of where the scores were. It's around 40% that you're going to have predicted proficiency. Another area that we have to identify, through the development and work with NGSS and STEELS and talking about how that new set of standards looks and ways that we're going to integrate, unit assessments and how we're going to tie those to standards and track data on those and link it. That's going to be the next layer here that needs to be finalized at the high school. That is started, but needs a lot more work.
Can I interrupt 1 second? I'm sorry.
Yep.
The percentages and Form A, Form B, Form C, how many students completed? I mean, do we know that that is a?
Yep, I'm going to show you that in the next slide.
Okay.
Yep,
Thanks.
I got that for you.
All right, sorry.
Sure. Try to be prepared. Try to be prepared if I can. This is special ed down here. You can see the numbers are lower significantly. 39% ELA. Honestly, that's low. It's not a terrible number, but it's low. This one, again, math, is really where we have a lot of needs. We have a lot of needs with Algebra 1. Taking a look at the courses, proficiency algebra, Algebra 1, how they're running, how we're looking at placing students coming out of the middle school properly. Those are conversations that need to happen as part of that planning stage to try to remediate that. And then science, you have, again, 23%, significantly lower. So while those numbers aren't great, and so the data is the data, and one thing you're going to get from me is I'm always going to give you the data. I'm not going to try to paint it. The data, this is what our system has. This is what we got. So what I can share.
Can you just go back for 1 second?
Yep.
Sorry.
You got it.
The Form A, Form B, Form C, I know we're not focusing on those numbers.
Yep.
But shouldn't they be increasing as we go instead of decreasing?
Yes and no. So yes, in a perfect scenario, yes. But what I will say is that there has been growth in all 3 tests, meaning performance across the content and standards on the tests. So each test is designed to measure the standard performance, meaning for the course, here's your set of standards that you're going to be tested on.
Right.
Your state standards, here's what you're tested on. Your performance on that is measured with the benchmark, and then there's a growth component that also is measured across the benchmarks in general. And when you look at the global data across the whole grade level, every kid that took the test, you get a range of obviously below basic, bubble, which are kids that are moving,
Right.
proficient and advanced. So ideally, a kid could they could have a really bad day on one test. Maybe they're just not focused, they don't feel well, they're tired, whatever. They could come in and have a great day, and they're between 1 sitting and 2 sittings, it may not accurately reflect it, but the goal of the test is to measure where they are on the standards.
Okay.
And that way, that shows us how, when they sit for the Keystone, which is also assessing the standards, how are they going to perform?
Okay.
So ideally, you'd love to see a nice linear, 50%, 55%, 60% across the standards, but I want to see 60% here. I don't necessarily put all my eggs in one basket with every one of these separate sessions. I want to see where are we going to be at proficiency on the Keystone? Because the goal is to prep them for the Keystone and that they understand the content.
And that proficiency number, it calculates for us, it's based on our students' performance on the 3 forms, but then also how our kids have performed historically on the Keystones. So, we know that there's many things that contribute to student performance, and oftentimes they understand the I don't want to say severity, but the seriousness of the Keystone exam as opposed to a benchmark, right? So though our benchmark numbers are kind of wavering, historically, based on how the kids perform in Form A and how our kids typically perform, that is usually a pretty indicative number of what they do on the Keystone. We've seen a really nice alignment between our benchmarks and Keystone performance of that predicted proficiency.
What is encouraging, even though the predicted proficiency is lower, especially in math, is I'm going to show you a couple comparisons related to growth. So, and these numbers are hard to see. I try to make these as large as I could coming out of Linkit, but if you look at Form B, which is that's the winter benchmark. This is algebra. And then you look at Form C, which is the one we just gave in April. We had 14% and 14% okay, but here is really what is interesting. We had 72% of students that fell basic, which is, you know, one step below basic, which is the lowest performing level, right? Then we had 69%, so it went down, but our bubble went from 7% to 9%, which meaning that we're moving kids along. We're getting growth on the actual performance between sittings. We went from 34.6% as an average score for the winter to 39.3% as an average score for the spring. So there's almost a 5% increase as an average. We've had growth in our bubble numbers, our proficiency numbers, and we even have, you can see over here, it's really small and you can't see the number, but we had an increase in our advanced numbers over here as well. So the students are moving on this test. This is based on about 210 to 215 students taking it. So that gives you a really nice global picture of Algebra 1 and how the students are performing across the benchmark. For ELA, it's a similar view. You have 43% here that were basic, now it's only 33% now. You had 11% that were bubble, now it's 15%. You had 45% that were proficient, now it's 49%. And the advanced also went up. You had an average score of 54.9, and now we're at 58.2. So we went up another 4%, essentially in ELA. So there's growth in the performance between test sessions, and that's with 490 students taking it. So that's a really great data pool, because that's half the student body is taking this ELA test from grades 9 to 10. So
Why
that's
is it so small in math? Just they did not that many kids are taking Algebra 1.
less students take Algebra 1, less students taking Algebra 1, and this is 2 full grade levels taking it. So that ELA is really encouraging, because you can see the growth, and we can unpack this, and and that's part of the data we'll look at over the summer when we craft the TSI plan, is unpack it by subgroup, by gender, by classification, or exceptionality. You can unpack this in a variety of different ways as you go to plan, to try to drive your plan forward as you look at targets for next year as far as our benchmarks and our integration of end of unit assessments into Lincoln 2 to measure the standards, which we'll be prioritizing next year. Biology is similar. Now, biology is interesting. We gave Form B together, and then there's 2 modules. There's Module 1 and Module 2. So there's a third window, because some teachers, when they gave this, they gave Form C as one full test, and then some teachers did Module 1 and then Module 2 separately, but it's still the whole test. So there were 290 students that took it, and you can see again, our our basic level is averaging out to be about 39%, while our bubble kids went up. Our proficient students went from 13% to about 20%, so we jumped about 7% there, and our advanced averaged out to about 12%, 11%, and we went from an average score of 44.4 to an average score of about 52%, because I'm just doing quick math here, averaging the 2 modules together. So we jumped in performance. We saw growth across the benchmarks, which I think that is really the key. That's a really good indicator. The performance actual scores there's a lot to be desired as far as our overall scores, but the fact that we're seeing growth indicates that we're measuring our data, our teachers are working towards pushing growth. Now we just need to keep our foot on the gas, and we need to really target how we're going to address these next year. That's kind of the next piece. So, I shared a lot of this piece. The data is at the year ended today. This is just some quick notes. 36 seniors right now are working on credit recovery. So I mentioned that before as far as our data. We had 46 originally, 10 of them have completed it. There's an intervention that we'll be running during our Keystone testing and then through May called RAMP, in which we're bringing in this group of seniors, which includes 11 special ed students, to complete and work on their credit recovery and any missing assignment and work that is occurring in any class at the present time related to current courses. We have dedicated teachers that will be doing it through our MTSS process, and we have special ed teachers that will be working on it. We have regular teachers that will be working on it. So any teacher who's on this list, or any student that's on this list, will be brought in for those 6 days and then longer if needed to remediate and try to help support them to finish credit recovery. All parents have been contacted and a plan's been put in place for each student. We'll walk through that this past week to kind of, once we got our at-risk list finalized, that was another project for me for the first 12 days. So we got that kind of with a plan in place to kind of, get an intervention. We're calling it RAMP, as in giving our seniors a ramp up to graduation. So that's our intervention for the end of the year for them. The other thing that is in our percent passing rate is I want to just mention is that it doesn't, delineate between semester courses or year-long courses. So you have some of these classes in here for our quarter 3% passing that are semester courses that you only have 1 grade in. So you're not pulling from 3 marking periods, you're pulling from 1, which means if the student again had a really bad marking period, they have an F right now, but that could easily maybe jump after they have a better marking period coming into 4th quarter. So that could potentially skew our numbers slightly. I didn't count those specifically. I just counted, looked at grades overall, but we'll see how that might impact our final year grades. And with attendance, as I said, we had a range set to 6, and taking a look at that range in the cumulative version versus the 18 unexcused is something that we're going to be monitoring until the end. And growth is there for all 3 content areas in the benchmark, which I think is a positive coming out of this. So those are some of the things that, just a quick look at all the data. Our current TSI plan, and as we kind of drive forward here to the end, I have the next steps for us for planning for TSI and the plan moving forward. We have 2 goals that we're currently monitoring quarterly. The first goal is related to graduation rate, and this is coming right out of the portal and how we monitor our data. So quarter 3's target was 75% of students with a disability will be passing all required courses for graduation. As of the end of the 3rd quarter, we had 74.46 students, which, as I said, we were within 0.5% of our target. Again, that is great. I'm really more concerned. I want to hit the 80. Like, that's at the end of the year, we got to be where we got to be. You can see it's dropped a little bit here. It increased in the 2nd marking period, then it slid a little bit. Which, when I say slide a little bit, it's 4 students that caused us to drop in percent. And if we look at our enrollments, that could end up we could have even been over the 75 right now because stuff changes every day. So this was, again, I put this data in on 4/12. So there's things that are going to shift throughout now in the end of the year. There's going to be plans made, but we're confident, talking with the team, that we're going to get to that 80. We should get to that 80% for the end of the year, which is great. The second goal that we're being monitored on through the state is for an 80. We have to get to a 90% passing rate for all 9th grade students for all currently scheduled classes, which puts them essentially 90% of our students on target to graduate, meaning earning 6.5 credits, which is what they're set up to earn. Right now we're at 88.65. We're literally 1.35% away, and we have 1 quarter left. And that's including all IEP students and regular ed students, all student groups. We are very comfortable with gaining another 1.35% between now and the end of the year. So we're pretty confident that we're going to hit our TSI targets, at least the goals that we were being monitored for this year. My perspective, however, which I'm going to just share, and I've spoken to Dr. Farina about this at length, is that for our planning steps, and this is really what I'm going to take out of this, is that we really should have 4 or 5 targets that are being monitored. Coming into this, seeing only 2 targets that were monitored, especially with our classifications through the TSI process and what our performance really should be, we should be monitoring stuff more in depth with some more specific data. So right now, as we go to update these goals, while we're confident we're going to hit this target for this year, for FRCPP, there's more work to be done with Linkit, more work to be done with standards alignment as far as our unit assessments, more work to look at with attendance once we get our final data over the summer, which hopefully we'll have an update in May related to that, or closer to that, depending on where we decide to meet again and convene to talk about TSI. We need to look at the plan. And so our preliminary, and I've been through this with my team, our administrative team, after the data pull, and Dr. Farina and special education with Skiblin, and we had a really great planning session. But right now we have our student meeting scheduled for TSI planning. We have our student committee that we're going to be meeting with. We have our teacher volunteers have been identified. We're going to be completing the teacher committee meeting in May, which is the process. You do a student meeting, you do a teacher meeting. Through that, you share your targets. I'm going to be reviewing pretty much a lot of this data with both of our groups, like coming out of this year, because this is a really good look at to where we really are, which is great for me as a new person here. Then we can kind of look at how we're using data time next year, which is a big piece. I know that was a concept that was integrated here at Upper Perk. How are we using that at the building level to address clearly our data, what our data shows? Unpacking it more, identifying content deficit versus course passing. There's two very different things. There's when a kid is taking a class and they aren't learning the content versus when a kid is taking a class and failing it. So you obviously want a balance of both focal points where you're looking at, okay, I want the students to gain this content so when they take the next class, they have the content to draw from and be successful. It's a build-up, it's climbing a ladder. You want them to have those steps on the ladder so when they get to the next step, they have the content background, which especially in math, it's very linear. But then there's also, when you talk about MTSS, for example, there's also the failures, like getting kids to pass the class. The ultimate goal is getting them across the stage, which is that access point for them to be successful in their post-secondary plan and how they move forward. So our identified group for TSI related to all this is special education, and that really is where we need to prioritize our energies and our focus as far as our planning. And my proposal preliminarily is 4 to 5 targets that we're going to monitor based on what I'm seeing in the data. Lincoln is showing us that we're having a lower percentage performance and predicted proficiency level than our regular education students in all 3 content areas. Our attendance is an area that we need to focus on. Our graduation rate's an area and our passing rate clearly is lower than our overall student body. So those are areas we need to monitor. The proposal that we have preliminarily prior, and this is prior to meeting with any of the teams, this is just based on what the data shows, is we need to have a special education course progress goal where we look at passing all scheduled classes. We need to have an attendance goal with some specific targets for our special education students and how we're monitoring that and how we're putting interventions in place, whether that's student attendance improvement plans, pulling in community-based resources to get students to school, truancy, how do we look at those components of getting students that have excessive unexcused absences in the building. We also need to set a Chapter 3 through 9 artifacts goal, which my buddy over here is going to help me very much with that. Not to call Angela out over here, but we're basically going to need to have a goal with Chapter 3 through 9 because one of the areas we are identified with is career artifacts. We are identified with that component, which isn't measured in any of these other pieces of data that I showed you, but that's definitely something that through Smart Futures we have to check our data at the end of the year, look at submissions and see where our senior class, because that data pulls at the end of junior year, so that's something we're working on now with our juniors. So we also then have to look at graduation rate and how many of our special education students are walking across the stage, and those need to be our target. Those really need to be targets that we monitor next year. And we also, to get that to happen, need some sort of teaching and instructional goal of what that looks like, meaning how many, and that's going to be highly driven by the administrative team and setting, focus areas for the building, whether that's, because, inclusion classes, we have a lot of these students spread out all throughout the building. How are we monitoring support, Tier 1 MTSS implementation, instructional practices, best practice, all that has to be considered. How many times are we getting to classrooms, walkthroughs, how are we quantifying that data, and at the end of the year, we're going to look at all that data that we have as well with instruction to see what that looks like, and we're going to have to set a goal as a building to drive some of these needs home with our, as a team, with our staff as a collective. So that's my preliminary take on this data. I just talked for 30 minutes, I'm sorry, but this is kind of from what I got so far, this is how far I've gotten in the 2 weeks that I've been here. Any questions?
First off, thank you. This is a much more comprehensive,
Sorry.
easier to understand and make sense of, and I feel much more comfortable and confident that there's a plan in place than I have up until this point. I do still want to keep this as a standing item on this, within this committee, because it's so important, but I have a much better feeling that with those goals in mind, we'll be able to reach, our targets.
And there's a lot of conversations too that need to happen about like grading and grading, you know, like grading philosophies, how, you know, that's gonna be with Kim and, you know, really what are we, you know, how are we grading, you know, weighting and unweighting, you know, talking about, you know, there's a lot of other things that I have that are just, that I'm just trying to like slow play right now so that nobody's like, Frank, slow down. But there's a lot of things on my list that we need to really kind of tackle that are big rocks that have to be kicked over to continue to move this forward. And it's going to be it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we have to play chess with it and kind of set ourselves up to get to the win.
Part of that, my question is, how do you think that the teachers are going to respond to this level of?
So far, in the conversations I've had teachers volunteer to be part of the team. I've been around to most of the departments. I still have more to do based on what my calendar's allowed me to get to the last couple weeks. It's from what the feeling I get is that we're ready to go. And I think the communication and the why, I think once we go through and we build it together and then we communicate it out and we talk about, you know, one of the things I'll do when I open next year is when we launch is I'm going to go through all this. Like we're going to look at our end of year data and I'm going to go through the TSI plan and I'm going to talk about what our goals are and we're going to talk about a plan to get there. And I find that if you do that and you talk through the why, it usually works. Like you're usually in a good spot. And that's something that will be something we take very seriously. We'll have continued updates next year, and that's going to be on me to communicate and make sure that everybody effectively understands really what the reality is and what everybody's role in that reality as far as how we move us forward. But I think so far the staff is great. They've been awesome. Like they are. I think they're honestly really they're excited, and I think that they're like ready to dig in, and they really want the direction of what we're going to do. So I'm encouraged. I think we're going to be good.
My last question is, what do you need from us?
I appreciate, you know, I think Frank 2.0. No, I think, you know, we got a really great team. You know, the assistant principals are really, you know, it's been really great getting to know them the last couple of weeks. District office has been great. I think the community partnership with our families and being able to just engage in conversations about the importance of this with our students, with parents, understanding that it's not just a checkbox about the state has us on this, you know, in this situation. It's like we want these kids to graduate and be successful, and there's components of this that clearly there's certain students that we really need to focus on to make sure that that happens. And the more we communicate, the more we can engage and really collaborate. I'm going to tell you how it is, even if the data's not pretty. And hopefully, you guys I'm trying to set that stage now where you're going to get the data. I mean, like, and if we see that we're hitting a snag, like getting together and just talking through, like, how do we get over this? Or if we get stagnant, how do we get over that the stagnant? How do we keep moving forward? So I think the community awareness component, which I'll do everything I can to try to keep that on our end from the school standpoint, but everything we can do to get parents on understanding what it is, why we're doing it, what our focus areas are, why Chapter 339 is important, why the business tours are important, why the community and the career-based connections are important, not just for us, for our district eval on Future Ready Index, but we're talking about your future. What are you planning on doing? And we want you to be successful. And I think that's the stigma that's often associated when you get into performance data, and that's really not why we do it. We're doing it because we want you to walk across the stage with a diploma so you can choose your path. And that's what I think would be the greatest help now. Well, obviously, when we have the plan, we'll draft it over the summer. We'll sit down and we'll really dig in on targets and data, and in our monitoring process. I think that would be great too to collaborate on that as well.
Great. Yeah, we're all in. Not to speak for JP and Trina, who's not here, but I'm sure they do.
For sure. Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you. JP, anything?
No, just in the interest of time, I'll just say ditto to Emily's comments. Thank you for presenting the data the way you did and getting those numbers so quickly. And it's very much more clear now what we're doing and how we're going to handle it. So,
And
like her, I feel.
yeah, we weren't able to see the progression.
Yes.
Right? Now we're able to see a progression.
Right.
It seemed like, Alan, anything you'd like to
I just want to
say?
add, as you said, what can you help, and I know some board members here, as we work through budget and finance, those level 2 pieces that are in that budget staff positions have major impact on the conversations that are going on here. Now, this is not a budget conversation, I'm just putting, you asked the question, I'm saying, we're gonna continue to work hard administratively to encourage those level twos, because they're gonna have ripple and positives on there. We share the ones and twos, again, that's for another conversation in future weeks, but those things are gonna be impactful in this specific conversation as we move forward.
Okay, thank
And
you.
Frank's gotta get somewhere to get to these kids.
Yeah.
My daughter's playing violin, she's in 3rd grade, it's her first concert tonight. So we're gonna-
Oh, all right, yes.
And that I always have a concern that we need to make sure that we have the proper supports in place to help teachers in the classroom.
Yep.
So whatever we can do to help with that, it's so important.
I agree, and I appreciate that very much, yeah, thank you. This presentation is available, it's public and permanent, Dr. Farina has it, so if anybody wants to look at it more or have any more conversations, I'm happy to discuss it and kind of walk through it more in detail. As we finish up grades this year and we finalize our academic review, and we sit down and we look a little bit more in depth at Lincoln and some of the performance across the standards, that's really going to help with our planning. So any questions there, any time that anybody has anything, feel free to let me know, and I'm more than happy to talk about it and, you know, lay it out with whatever we have, so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody.
Feel free to take a slice for the road.
I'm good, I'm gonna probably end up eating like ice cream or something.
That's what it's
I'm gonna run down with this thing. All right, thanks, guys.
Sure.
I'm gonna X out of that.
Are we okay, Dr. Farina, to go in order here with the agenda?
We are.
Angela,
I will.
Mr. Flanagan teed up Angela very nicely. Do you want to plug in? Do you want, Andrew, do you have the slide deck? Do I have the slide deck? Angela, I can.
You have it?
Okay, what's it called?
It's,
Oh, you mean yes, there was.
Yeah, I know. Well, I can find it. It's our
I do it all the time.
career and health.
Yep, that's what it is.
I remember.
CPHS 2034.
Okay. So if you want to come up, Angela is joining us, I will entertain in just a second, to talk about her position as a teacher on special assignment this year. Frank totally teed her up for all the work that she's been doing to help kids see the relevance of, you know, why they're in high school and work on what is their passion, what is their spark, and how can we help them gain the experiences they need to see if they want to continue down that pathway. You can join us at the table.
Oh, yeah, please don't. You have to.
Yeah.
Unless you're more comfortable with that.
No, I mean, I just said, I didn't plan on sitting. Let me grab mine. And I will have this up in just a second, and then you'll be good to go. Kim, you want that visual? You want to tell me when to click, or do you want to use Dr. Farina's clicker? Oh, yeah. You know, and I'll just speed you up. No, I'm totally kidding.
She does that.
I'll be like, click, click,
Yeah.
click. I'm teasing.
Yeah, I'll take it.
You're done in 30 seconds. Okay, thank you. Do I have it ready? Is this the right one? Oh, no, wrong here. Wrong here. Got a lot of these folks.
I can reshare it.
No, I have it, Angela. It's just, it wasn't
It
at
did
the top of
look.
my list, and so.
It was on her calendar, so she couldn't find it.
She has everything color coded. I do. I pulled up 20, oh, here it is. I know, here we go. Now we're good. Now I see everything. Thank you, Kim. Sure.
My AirCam was not working this morning, so I appreciate doing that. It could be because I was moving so much.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So Angela has prepared this slide deck. We had a chance to share with some principals and school counselors last week to kind of practice it and get some really good feedback from them. So we're going to talk about how her work this year has really impacted the students and how much we really hope it's able to continue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
Well, thank you very much, and Frank and I did not practice, but he definitely queued me up very well for this presentation. Thank you for having me this evening, and I'm thankful to share with you the work that we've been doing with our students at the high school so far. So, Smart Futures is the wonderful platform that we are using to help our students with their Chapter 339 work and their career and future readiness. and really the importance of exploring their why. I heard multiple people say that this evening, and the academics are extremely important, but our students understanding the why behind the academics and then how it connects to the place of, you know, their future work in terms of their career is really important for our generation now. And so Smart Futures is a platform that many school districts across the state of Pennsylvania, it is PDE approved, and many of our neighboring districts are using it. Springford, Boyertown, some of those to be listed. And so when our students are able to use that at the middle and high school currently, but I understand next year we're also subscribing,
It's at
so that they'll
4-5.
start. It's at 4-5 as well, but they'll start this in kindergarten. So as a mom myself of 2 boys, when I think of, you know, if they had a program that they could, the whole idea is the consistency and continuity across grade levels, and it also can transfer from other school districts if they're using it at other school districts. And then they can reflect on what their, you know, past self was thinking about, and then also spit out a portfolio upon graduation with all the artifacts and investments that they've made personally. So I have been incredibly thrilled. I'm having a great year, and I'm really, really grateful for that. But this is a TOSA, which is a teacher on special assignment position. Formerly in the district, I was a counselor, and this is my 23rd year in education. I transferred from another school district, and this is, the students have heard me say this and have read it in 1,000 of my emails. I really, you know, want them to make themselves proud every day and follow through with finding something that, you know, gets them going and brings them back to school the next day with feeling good about what they're doing towards their future work. I hit the ground running in June, July, because I was so excited and researching various organizations and partnerships that we can create as a district. And I'm super thrilled to share that we've gone on 7 college trips this fall. We did 2 spend-a-day events with industry. One was spending the day with construction, and the other was spending a day with nurses. We've gone on 4 industry tours, some new that I didn't even know existed because I don't live in this county, but I didn't know about Lavasa Internet. I drink their coffee, I love it, but I had no idea that they're in Montgomery County, and that's their international headquarters. We took students there. We've also taken students to Alan Myers Construction, just 2 turns away from our district, and our students can be there within 20 minutes. We've had 5 workforce-related programs come into the high school, one of those being Montco Works, which I work very closely with, or have worked very closely with this year. And that really helps students who particularly may have an IEP, may be at risk for not graduating high school, may be disadvantaged youth. And so that program really helps them understand what the resources look like through their 24th birthday, so that if they need more case management or job coaching or help with applications or finding travel reimbursement to get to work, that has been a workforce-related program that I found to be very helpful to some of our students. We had 6 career guest speakers this past fall, all from different career clusters, so that they were represented well with students. We just finished in April our sophomore business trips. That was a huge, and that has been a huge initiative for at least a decade, and we were thrilled to have 24 businesses locally participate in that program, and 272 sophomores went through 2 businesses each and then reflected on that. In March, we had always as counselors held our college info night, but this year I expanded that to include some local business representatives as well, and so that was a college and career info night for our students who may not want to go on to college, but may want to go straight into the workforce or even seek advancement through that work and tuition reimbursement. And so we had students, even though that was the very first day without technology, it was March 13th. So, but we were, no.
It was the day after?
The day after, yes. But I am proud to say that all of our 75 folks that came out, parents and students, minus my last minute, reminders or anything like that, they were still able to come out and enjoy conversation with our guest speakers. And some were even able to look at doing job shadows and or summer work. We just completed our first cohort of a free program called the ACE Mentor Philly program. We had 20-some students that are interested in architecture, construction, or engineering come out on their own time on a Tuesday night from 3:30 to 5:30 to the UMJA site, which is our local Upper Montgomery Joint Authority hosted that program. And I'll be taking some students with me to Philadelphia to the Academy of Natural Science for an awards dinner in May. So students were really excited to make, and some of them are students who are not doing well in the classroom, but they were they were able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they may not be loving algebra or loving English, but they came every day. Some of them walked to that program on a Tuesday. And I'm really proud of the work that they did with connecting to mentors in the field.
And said to you when it was over that they missed it, and could they still just show up there on a Tuesday?
Yeah, yeah. It became, they made connections, and it was really, really sweet. We also have another free program that I've had the opportunity to research this year is the Real World Radio program. I've gone to meetings at the IU and I learned that some other school districts are involving themselves with it, and so I asked the question, hey, can Upper Perk get involved as well? And so today I had 5 students sit with me on a recorded Zoom with CEOs from Solomon Edwards Business Consulting Firm in Philadelphia, and they spoke with them about what were their thoughts between the ages of 8 and 16, and what kind of fears did they have, what kind of failures did they have as CEOs when they didn't know they were going to be COOs, and various important, powerful occupations. And so there are students that are really enjoying that, and that has the potential to build into a job shadowing program next year. We're piloting it this year, but 7 students each semester would have that opportunity, and then to go on a field trip and visit that company. And that is all, that's a free program that we found as well. We have our first student in a pre-apprenticeship program. That's also a connection through the IU. I took 3 students on an industry tour at Stein Seal and Telford and Culpsville, and one of our students was accepted into that program, so he will be, if he completes all of the requirements, he will be gainfully and competitively employed as of June with Stein Seal, which puts rockets and jets in the air, so precision is their specialty. We also, of course, our CTE students have always had the opportunity to earn OSHA certs, but now we have, we were, through the BEP grant with the IU, we were given certifications for SB2s and OSHA, and so given my position this year, I've had the time to look into those and also load the courses for the students and monitor their dashboard. We have 3 students that currently have completed that program, and they did that on their own time. That's not a class credit, that's not something they're doing in their school day. It's a 10-hour course, and they now have a nationally industry recognized credential that they can use, and they don't go to the Western Center. They either didn't get in or they're not a student that attends there. So in some... What's SP2? SP2 is a soft skills, the importance of soft skills in the workplace, and also looking at interviewing skills, resume building, communication, problem solving, but it goes through modules that are 45 minutes each. And thank you for asking, Melanie, because you're reminding me that that has been a solution where Amy and I have collaborated. We have 3 students now, we're up to 3, who are in placement, sadly, and in that placement they're not able to earn their Act 158 requirements, and so this is one of those that they can do. So we are still able to sponsor that through the IU and then pair up with the placement counselors so that they can complete those requirements.
Yeah, a few of these, Angela, I'm sorry to interrupt, help also. Act 158 is graduation requirements, so students who might not be on the proficiency pathway with the Keystone exam have opportunities to do other things.
And those industry recognized credentials are one thing that checks the box for them, and it's really practical for what they're doing. So a lot of Angela's work has bridged 339 and 158 for graduation. So we're thrilled.
Thank you. The next two slides are, I have filled my camera and my Google Drive, or my phone is hanging on, but I've taken 1,000 pictures of our kids because I catch them, you know, so excited in a candid, the boy on the bottom right, we were at Alan Myers, he's in 10th grade. He asked, how soon can I get a job here? I want to work here. This is where I want to be. I'm so excited. He is studying a related field at the Western Center, but now he has his eyes on the prize. He literally spoke to the HR director that day and asked how soon he can get an internship. So that was really rewarding to see. The students here on the bottom left are at Lavassa with me at the coffee company, and we dressed for the occasion, and we went into that manufacturing plant, and we saw the variety of jobs that a student can do, that a graduate can do, whether it be in their accounting or their HR or on their production line. And we'll be going back next week, actually, with 5 new students. And on the top left is a trip to Universal Technical Institute. We took students there to see programs like welding, diesel, auto collision repair and technology, and all the different certifications that they can earn there as well. And some other slides. The top left is a group that we took to Kutztown University to see various college programs that they can offer locally. Diagonally, the left and the right are guest speakers that we had come to speak with students about the importance of soft skills in the workplace and being just a genuine good human being. Some of them didn't even mention what their title was at their company until the end. They really were very relatable, and I've been very picky about our guest speakers to make sure that they know that they're engaging and really enthusiastic, and their why is very evident through their work with our students. The student in the middle there is practicing the VR goggles provided by our IU. He is simulating, he was actually climbing an electrical tower and fixing a line, and I got motion sickness doing it myself, but he really enjoyed it. The bottom right is we spent a day with nurses at LVHN, and 9 girls went with me, and we actually went up to the helipad and met the flight nurses and the medevac team right before they went to an emergency. And so these students have all been, they know me by now, they're required, and Mrs. Bast as well, that they need to be documenting and reflecting. That's the real awesome time, is when I can hear and read their reflections and really see what their impressions have been. And many of them have, come to me, when can I go on another trip, and it's all, sometimes it's because they read their email and they found out about an opportunity. This is a picture of our new graduation requirements, starting with our 9th graders eligible for, with our counselors working very hard to determine with the family and the student whether or not they are a traditional diploma or a scholars diploma, being a 24 versus 28. On the bottom right-hand corner, I wanted to highlight that the 2 credits for future readiness, and so, again, explaining not just that this is a requirement, but really understanding and embracing why the work is so important for their future. 9th grade freshman prep and 10th or 11th grade elective being college and career preparation. These are the new requirements from Pennsylvania Department of Education, and so this is how we are envisioning embedding it into our curriculum. And so many of us are familiar with the business tours, and the business tours are absolutely amazing. We are starting to, using that model, but giving freshman prep, which is a 9th grade requirement, more breadth and depth with the idea of career mentorship being embedded into that course. It's It's a 6-hour experience with a mentor. In 10th grade, job shadowing would be a requirement, which is a 9-hour experience or a 3x3. 11th grade, service learning. Currently, we have 12th graders doing community service, but we want the service learning to be spelled out a little bit more specifically in terms of the Act 158, which is graduation pathway, is a 10-hour requirement, or the 60 hours being fulfilling the 339 requirement. And then in 12th grade, we do have a capstone project already in place, and I'm hoping to build more.
I just want to stop you right there just for a second. This has been the bulk of the work that we had hoped that Angela would accomplish this year, and she's done a fabulous job if you haven't already noticed. But the idea that we needed this infrastructure in place, we have such willing businesses, we have an amazing chamber, we have an amazing community that says, yes, let's meet your kids, let's see your kids. So we needed to put a structure to that. And when Angela and I were speaking with Frank about this, the new principal, Mr. Frank Flanagan, he had some great ideas as well to help this become very tangible for students and help to meet these requirements in a painless way, again, always revolving around that why. So the fact that we can come to you now in April and say the infrastructure has been built for career mentorship and job shadowing, we're still developing some other capstone projects and also a little bit more with service learning. But this was the big thing we were hoping to get accomplished, the framework. It takes a lot of work to do that and build that, and now we need Angela to help implement it.
Thank you, Kim. I do have paper copies as well, if anyone wanted a copy of the application draft that we have created. I did list here that the examples that I've listed are things that we are already piloting with our students. And so all of these things are already in progress, and we hope to just continue to build from there. So an example of career mentoring would be the ACE Mentor program that I had mentioned. Although those students did well beyond 6 hours, it was 2 hours every Tuesday, 8 times. And they are doing reflections on that. A job shadowing example would be the executive radio program. I'm also observing the Explore Post program held at Lutron in Coopersburg. That will be next week, where I visit that evening program. And then we also have we have access to a virtual program through a software called Pathful, formerly Nepris, which is sponsored by RU. And that program would help our students that might have transportation barriers or may not have the household variables in place, but that is something that they could do on their own. We are piloting that right now, actually next Monday and Tuesday. I'm pushing in with our freshman prep classes, and so we have 2 freshman prep classes that are piloting that because we felt as a faculty that it would feel better to pilot it with a group of 39 rather than jump right into a group of 200 and some next year. So we will be piloting the virtual option, which is all through Zoom, and they are mentors. We have access to 60,000 mentors with clearances through that program. The service learning options that 2 of our local businesses that are supporting us and all in terms of partnering are the Cradle of Liberty Council down the road at the Muscle Reservation, doing some outdoor work there at that property, and also Frederick Living, which is a local assisted living nursing home facility. And so I've met with their Department of HR, and they're all about our students coming to visit and complete those hours. One of our 12th grade programs that I'm very proud of is our group of students that go to St. Luke's. I have had the opportunity in this position to serve as liaison to that program. And so we have students who go to St. Luke's once a week for a clinical rotation all year. They serve 2 different clinical rotations, and those are students who are curious about the idea of working in the healthcare profession and getting exposed to that early while they're in high school, rather than spending a lot of money and time in college and then realizing that it's not for them. They also go down with me to hear lectures monthly or quarterly. And so this past Friday, they heard from the orthopedic team through St. Luke's. And before that was Doug Radcliffe, who has been a nurse forever, talked with them about the med-surg unit and one-day surgery, and they practiced robotic surgery, not practice, but like simulated, not practice, sorry, wrong choice of words. They simulated a robotic surgery, which really exciting. So to see the students in that arena, and then actually during the business tours earlier this month, 2 of our seniors were actually on shift as volunteers through that program. So our 10th graders got to see our 12th graders in uniform. And it was a surprise because the 12th graders didn't know the 10th graders were coming. And that was a super delightful moment to witness. I do have some paper drafts here, but we do, as Kim mentioned, we do have drafts of the application packet for career mentorship, as well as what the reflection piece would look like for the student, and all of this goes into Smart Futures. So it's uploaded. We're working with the Smart Futures marketing team to help them understand the importance of why we need templates, but at the moment we have our own template, and this can be scanned and uploaded. And just like our business tours, and our students also in 10th grade upload their letters of recommendation as artifacts towards their future readiness. And so we have drafts of all of these documents already in place. And I think it was Frank's second day that you and I met with him, and he jumped right in, taking lots of notes and listened for the first maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then gave us immediate feedback, which was very promising. And so we were discussing, you know, for our bulk of students that attend the Western Center, what will that look like, because they're already with career mentors, and also for our students who are gainfully employed already, what can that look like in terms of career mentoring if they are already employed. So those are discussions that are ongoing. I don't know what happened. Try again. Pause. There we go. So, real quick, I just want everyone to close their eyes and take a moment to imagine yourself when you were in 4th grade. And who did you look up to at that time? Did you have a mentor? Think of that person, imagine him or her. Teleport yourself to 8th grade, when you were perhaps 13 or 14 years old, and who did you look up to? Who was your mentor at that time? Fast forward to high school. Was there someone that you looked up to at that time? And who was your mentor? You can open your eyes. Thank you for being so cooperative. So, what are you doing today? And what is your why? And does what are you doing today, and does your why match any of those above that? Imagine if our whole district gave true opportunities for students to find their why, and we fostered actual future readiness. We could benefit, we would benefit all of our youth by increased high school graduation rates, an overall better attitude about school, enhanced self-esteem. These are the districts in our neighboring districts that have a similar role to mine. And I've had the pleasure of meeting all of these folks and comparing notes with them. And my former building principal and current building principal have been very open to me having conversations with them. I visited their centers or their offices, and I can sit here and tell you that I know that we can confidently match what they're offering at those high schools and or do a even better job than what is being offered at those high schools. And I want to share with you, these are our resources. Kim and I worked on this together. Our Chamber of Commerce has been an amazing resource. We are so fortunate in this district to have our own Chamber of Commerce. When I worked in Lehigh County, we shared a Chamber of Commerce with 8 other high schools. And when you're trying to split those hairs so many different ways, you often don't get their attention. We have 200 and some businesses in our own area who are completely all in. I have the pleasure of sitting on the Perk Up Committee with Kim and Andrea and several other staff members, and we just have so many resources that we can access. And so I know that with our families and our faculty support and our administrative support and our community support, all stakeholders, we have an advisory council coming up in May, which will, I don't know if we have enough space in this room for because of all the invitations that have gone out, but I appreciate, I've had great conversations with parents because I only worked with a third of the alphabet in the past, and now I get to meet or speak with all families. So I'm super thrilled about that, and I hope that I can continue serving you in this role.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just have to tell you, when she said she hit the ground running, she hit the ground running. And she has said yes to everything, and then said, can I say yes to that? So it's been a pleasure to watch her heart for kids and really get involved in everything. And so I appreciate your time tonight and all the things that you've done this year, Angela. It's very much appreciated, and it will have benefit for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Your
everyone.
passion for the students is palpable, and I really appreciate that. And it just goes to show what great teachers we have and counselors and helpers out there to really push our students. So that's fantastic. That's what counts.
Thank you. I'll leave you with some copies of this just in case you want to see them.
Thank you.
Oh, and Kim and I can share the PowerPoint.
Yeah, and you're free to go in. I don't know what else you had going on today.
And you can also help us. Presenters are allowed to
I
have.
actually grilled dinner for my family and then I ran, but I have to pick up my oldest from lacrosse practice.
Okay.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, moving right along.
Yes.
Material adoption and curriculum review K-5 science.
Okay.
Let's give it an update.
All right, so we have had our materials on display in the Ed Center here for the past, I think it's over 30 days now, and they'll be here for the rest of this week. And I just wanted to take a minute to try to clarify some things that were said. And I hesitate to do this because Mrs. Scharschmidt is not here. And one of the things
She'll watch the recording.
One of the things I was desperately asking and hoping for was the opportunity to have dialogue when there are questions and concerns. It's really important that we honor the work of the teachers, and they're here. Can you guys stand up? I know, I'm sorry. Stand up. Yeah, they're waving. They won't stand up.
Thank you guys. Thank you for being here tonight
I
as
feel
well.
it's very important for us to recognize the work that's done by our teachers. Our curriculum review process has not changed. It's been the same for a number of years. We gather a group of teachers, we look at resources, we look at standards, we do a lot of professional development. They have to put up with sessions with me, and then we have to put it in Embark, and I have to go kind of work on that with them because sometimes that can be tricky. And so they've done a tremendous job this year, and they wanted to come and represent that. I had one sweet girl who couldn't be here, and she said, I'll send you highlights. So she did a whole bunch of things about the second grade curriculum, so if you want to see that, there are some copies up here. I printed them in color because she took so much time to do that. So, but I did want to just clarify some statements that were made because I think that the value of this process is so important, and I think we do it with fidelity. So just a couple of items. It was stated that I had never seen their mission statement of Amplify, and that's not true. I was asked about a DEI statement, which I hadn't seen. I hadn't looked for that. In fact, I didn't know it existed until it was pointed out to me. So I just want to clarify that. You can't do curriculum review and look at materials without knowing the mission statement of the company. And so theirs is leading the way in high-quality next-generation curriculum and assessments. Amplify is dedicated to collaborating with educators to create learning experiences that are rigorous and riveting for all students. Amplify creates K-12 core and supplemental curriculum, assessment, and intervention programs for today's students. So we'd all heard that, we'd all known what they were about, but we were really concerned with the quality of the academic resource. That's what our rubric was focused on, and we're really looking at it through the eyes of students, particularly the teachers. I've got kindergarten represented back there, I've got first grade represented back there, I've got kindergarten again, fifth grade, and second grade here. So it's the gamut of those little eyes looking into what they're going to be learning in the area of science. We were also asked about social justice standards. That was confirmed by Amplify, that they're not aligned with social justice standards in their science curriculum. I'm assuming they're looking at one particular site's social justice standards because they're not a part of PDE that I'm aware of. I was looking at what I thought the reference to that was. We did look at FOSS. FOSS is a program that we've been using for a number of years. It's been used for so long, the materials aren't necessarily even there. The old FOSS doesn't exist anymore, so we looked at new FOSS, and it was certainly viable, But we used our rubric and looked at some of the other features available and decided to go with Amplify. I will tell you that these classroom teachers share their time, their talent, their expertise. We really want to honor the student voice and their analysis of the programs being vetted. We looked at a lot of, I think, 5 different products that we looked at. We researched them, we had people in to show them to us. It is thorough, it's demanding, it's time consuming, it's educational, and it's so rewarding. And they're giving more of their time tonight to be here and kind of show how important this curriculum and their students are to them. So I thank you. They've done a tremendous job of choosing activities that will engage students in discovery as they become scientific engineers. I think that's what I love so much about this is the word engineer. They get to be a scientific engineer, engage in science, and do a lot of hands-on things. I included 2 articles as a follow-up as well. One had to do with looking at all of the new curriculum products that are out there. And because STEELS is new and NGSS is actually newer, there aren't a lot of products that are necessarily really aligned with STEELS. In fact, Amplify was the only one that kind of got a green light to say that it was even slightly aligned. And it's very aligned, much more than any of the other products. The other article that I included is one that cites the increase in literacy scores by using this Amplify program because there's so much reading in it. There's so many trade books for students. And so our teachers who say, I don't have enough time in ELA to do all that stuff, now they have an opportunity in science class to reinforce some of that reading and writing and things that are so important for our students. The STEEL standards were adopted by the state of Pennsylvania. They will be fully implemented in fully implemented next year, and the PSSA will change the following year. It's really important that our students get exposed to these standards, the hands-on activities, because this is much more about kids doing. Most of the standards have verbs, pretty rigorous verbs, even in kindergarten. Shannon's going, even in kindergarten. And so we want our students to be ready and have experienced this curriculum by the time they have to take that PSSA, which will be realigned with those standards for 25-26 when it moves from 4th grade to 5th grade. So we want them to have 2 years of STEELS aligned curriculum prior to having to take that new PSSA. Locally, Palisades uses Amplify. I got to speak with their curriculum director, and he said that the process that they went through sounded very much like ours. They had a woman who had done her doctorate on science education lead their program, lead their curriculum review, and couldn't have been happier about it. One of their elementary schools had 100% proficiency on 4th grade PSSA last year. There was much more of the conversation. I'm happy to have that with you if you're interested. The gentleman from Governor Mifflin did call me back, but I was in Pittsburgh earlier this week for federal programs, so I did not have a chance to connect with him. They've been using it for just over a year, so that would have been a nice perspective to gain 4+ years versus 1 year. I do say I welcome discussion and dialogue about teaching, learning, and curriculum. It's what I do, it's what I love. I hope I sound as passionate, as weird as it sounds, about curriculum as she does about careers and students. And I just think it's really important that accurate information gets disseminated. And the way that that happens is when we have dialogue. I think a monologue makes it rather difficult to make sure the right information is getting out there. I also think that sometimes we have a tendency to look at things through our own lens, and sometimes that may be political. We spent the time to look at this science curriculum for student lenses, through a student lens. We're not here for politics, we're not here for social initiatives, we're here for kids, and it was really important for us to look at the value of the academic product, and that's why we chose Amplify. So I don't know, I'm not putting you on the spot, you don't have to say anything, ladies, I just appreciate you being here. I do want to give you time to talk, though, if you wanted to.
You hit everything I was going to say, pretty
Okay.
much, so.
Good, and we didn't even plan that time.
No.
We didn't even do that. Okay. Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
I appreciate that. Again, I can see your passion, and I have seen it for the past several years, that I've been on the board, and at no time, did I think that what you're doing is not putting the best interests of our students first. It is very clear that that is what, you're doing, and to have watched over the years, because I was on this committee before I was the chair of the committee, to see how you've, used the rubric in the past and how very detailed your plans are in doing, planning each year and how things are going to be done and what those, and reviewing the curriculum and looking at them, there is no doubt that, anybody who has spent any amount of time with you would see that and would see the amount of work that goes into choosing these things is not done lightly, and is done in the best interest of our students at heart. And that's, at the end of the day, why we're here. We are not here for politics. We're not here for, pushing agendas. We're here to get our kids, just like Angela said, just like Frank said, get these kids ready. I grew up here. I went to school here. I'm a product of Upper Perk. Part of the reason I moved back to Upper Perk is because of the experiences that I've had here. I can tell you that, we're laying the groundwork right now, and we have been for many years, to really bring this community, to be a proud place where, we're raising good, responsible, critical thinkers, ones that are able to hopefully go out there and make a big difference in the world. So thank you very much. I think you hit all the points that I was going to hit as well. And it seems like all of the work you've done is very thorough. JP?
Ditto.
Melanie?
Well, I've been here for 7 years, so I feel like I have, in fact, I can't remember who our director of curriculum was before, it was Kim. I appreciate the fact that I know that there's actually a review cycle that I think was pretty non-existent before that. Scheduled, correct?
Yeah, Andrea and
Standards
Ally had
aligned.
started that. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Andrea and Ally started that.
Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate that. And it would be nice, I'll have to say, I'll be the one to say it. It would be nice if, and I did mention to Mrs. Sharsmith that maybe we should have talked about that in committee instead of a big blast at a public meeting, the ones that people actually watch.
And I'll say too that, I'm glad to see the audience that we have here tonight, and I appreciate you all coming.
Yep.
And whatever, I encourage you all to come, to.
All the time?
All the time. This is a great one. This is my favorite of all the committee meetings, and I've been on a lot of them.
And there's not always.
Not to say that policy isn't outstanding. You know what, I also like extracurricular. I'm not gonna lie, I like extracurricular. This one, I do like extracurricular more than policy. But I like this one specifically because it's the most rewarding to me to see the work that goes into what our teachers are doing and what our administration is doing to really further our students. That's really where you can feel good about having, sending your students to Upper Perk and your children. And, I sat and listened to Mrs. Traub tonight. My daughter is in 10th grade and is going through all those things right now. She went to a couple of those tours last week or 2 weeks ago and came home.
She didn't come to my place.
No, she didn't. But she didn't get her first choice either, so she actually ended up at 2 places that she didn't pick. But she still enjoyed it and, talked her head off. So again, I appreciate all the work that's being done, and it's impressive. It really is, and that's what this committee I think shows too, is the work that goes into it, and that's why I like it the most. So.
I think the teachers do a tremendous job, and when we're on the same team, and we're here to collaborate for kids, and we're here for kids, and I think when we can work together, I think that makes a better product, it makes a better process. Critical friends are welcome, but I think the dialogue is what's most important to me.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a great point. I'm glad you said it. Diversity of opinion is fantastic, and having that diversity and having different viewpoints is great, but I think you put it very well when you said the lenses have to be put on appropriately, right? The lens that we all have to keep on is that we're here for the students. We remove all of the other sort of noise and background that might come in, and yeah, we're all, that diversity is what makes us all, diversity of opinion is what makes us all better. But having that, kind of stripping away and being able to listen and not show such a judgmental or, lead with anger, that's really the way to go. I started, the mantra I try to keep myself going is assuming best intent. I'd like to assume the best intent of everyone who comes in, because I know we all care about our kids. So, I do that as I come into these meetings too, is that I don't feel as though anybody has got any nefarious agenda in mind. We're all here for the benefit of the children.
And to piggyback on that, I hate saying that, but I do it anyway. I feel like our district, it is a home district. It's, we're not Springboard, we're not Penn Ridge, we're not Lower Marion, and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Just saying.
Other board members in attendance, was there anything that you guys wanted to add? Go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I did look up the curriculum, and I've looked at it a lot, so maybe you guys can help me with some of this, because it's just, it's a different opinion. It's going to be the opposite. So there's a lot of positive, but I also looked up some negative on, and maybe you can clarify it, because you guys are teachers, and I'm not. So this one was by change.org, but it was Seattle Public School Systems took on Amplify, I think, I'm not quite sure if it was in 2019, because one of the articles was on 2019, but they've got more years now of experience too, so maybe they've added some stuff and changed some stuff from what these people wrote. But this article said, the Amplify curriculum that instead of bringing students to higher standards of curiosity and learning, brings down the bar to a level that makes it nearly impossible for students to be invested in. It makes it nearly impossible for students to want to learn and like the topics. They don't differentiate between, now I don't know all this, like general education learning and HCC. I don't know what HCC is, so it may be something in Washington State. They have the same learning style and boring methods for both, and that really makes it tiresome for HCC students, considering the whole point of HCC is to be taught differently. It gives a black and white solution when students are abstract and learn differently in different ways. It isn't, oh, and then one teacher said, Amplify is boring, it kills inquiry in kids, almost no hands-on activities for kids, a few teacher demos, tons of low-level reading, simulations, but not enough to keep kids from being bored to tears and hating science. This is a parent and educator. She said, first, real learning occurs during messy, three-dimensional hands-on experiences in the context of real-life relationships with teachers. Real learning is difficult and carves new neural pathways in growing children. Real learning does not come from the remotely monitored bite-sized screen-sized lesson or screen-based lessons. The use of such curricula does our children a tremendous disservice and robs them of critical skill building and relationship honing opportunities. Second, where in the long-term research-based evidence that technology-based curricula like Amplify Science are more effective than well-trained, well-supported teachers. We have decades of research about the value of human teachers to teach critical skill building and relationships, the foundation on which all other learning happens. There are so many other parents, teachers, and students that are unsatisfied with Amplify techniques, convince social public schools to switch to a science curriculum that empowers students to want to be their best learners instead of bringing them down to Amplify standards.
So thank you so much for bringing that. It sounds very unlike what we.
Can I just say,
HCC? Yeah.
HCC is gifted.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay, thank you.
I felt better when you were like that.
I didn't know, I Googled it. Highly capable program, which in Washington is gifted
Okay, thank you.
instruction.
Well, what you said too, maybe go back and read it. Did the part, were they potentially talking about a virtual program, I wonder? Because they said something about how
No hands-on.
no hands-on training, and it did seem to say that.
Yeah,
the hands-on
I'll let the
was-
ladies respond. Go ahead, Sarah, you
Yeah.
want to say something?
I think that was one of the things that drew us really to this particular resource. I mean, in kindergarten, like, the second unit we're doing is building pinball machines, and they're gonna have to learn about force and motion and direction, and if I hit it, pull back this hard, and I play, like, how far is it gonna go? Do I need to change the direction? And as opposed to just being like, here's a ramp, here's a pulley, like, for force and motion, like, they're really like digging into building pinball machines, and I think some teachers are like, that's gonna be
Total
crazy
chaos.
pandemonium, kindergarten and 5-year-olds, but I think we were excited to see kids actually get to build a game system, you know.
So,
and
and
that works.
we're not using a computer base, like, there's not much, nothing that we chose has the kids on the computer doing simulations on the computer. Not anything that I saw. Tony, anything that you can think of?
I'm trying to
I know, 'cause you're
There's
fifth
some
grade.
simulation examples on
Right.
there, but it's a lot of hands-on.
Yeah.
We are making terrariums and, yeah, ours is in fifth grade, it's hands-on. Yeah, definitely, which is, again, like Sarah said, what drew us to it. Science, it's fun if you can do it, hands-on.
Yeah, science
So
needs to
they're
be-
learning and they're having fun and they don't even realize they're learning. And
So,
then they-
I appreciate the question, and it's a good one, because you're hearing from people who have done it, but I don't know if we're talking about the same program, or at least even the same activities, because it doesn't sound like what we are doing. So I appreciate the.
Or potentially they revamped because of.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
gonna
how old
say, yeah.
That was
this
19,
is
you said?
2019.
So
They had
maybe
5 years ago.
maybe they did revamp, which is great.
Which makes
And it was
sense.
just a change.org petition?
Yeah, it's all from Seattle, because they got, I guess the school district got it, and then there were a lot of parents were like, and students were bored, they didn't like it.
But what you're reading comments from the petition? Or is it like actual articles about the,
This one is comments from teachers and
And
students.
And I would say in my experience, parents who have children with giftedness are often parents who question core curriculum. I mean, that is not an, look, everybody's like, because the question is always, how do we increase the depth and rigor of our core materials? Which is something that is a very common conversation for us administratively and certainly out of the classroom. So.
Speak a little bit about the differentiation that you saw, because I think that's such a good point, Andrea. There are differentiation resources built into the program, yes? But maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention to what we might be doing for our gifted learners. There may need to be some conversations with Holly, who's our gifted teacher, to say, how can we help supplement that?
Well, I feel, looking at the new standards and looking at all the different programs we looked at, I would be most happy with my own kids. They're due to board time and Village Health Perk. I would want them in the Amplified, because everything else we looked at, I don't think would have prepared our kids for the new PSSM. And at the end of the day, like, I would go to bed at night, you know, like I did everything I can for every one of my kids. And just looking at everything they had to offer, especially with the language arts components of the actual nonfiction text in what we're learning, the kids grab onto that, because they're like, oh, well, wow, we just learned that in reading, now we can relate it to science.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Any other ones?
do the program, are we, what if, like, we try it for a year and then they don't like it for some reason, say they don't, are we locked in?
So I have a 1-year contract, mostly because of cost. You can do 3 years, you can do 4 years. We didn't have the budget built in to do a $500,000 4-year adoption. It's a little bit under 5, it's like 415 for 4 years. The 1 year is 215. We've been trying to shave some numbers off, so it's a little bit lower than we thought. We're going with 1 year for a couple of different reasons. One, we don't know if we're going to need all the investigator notebooks. We don't want to make this huge 4-year purchase where there's replenishing things every year that we don't need, therefore we don't want to pay for. It is an opportunity to see how things work, to see what we maybe need to reorder the next year, but we're not up for science curriculum review after this for a number of years. So it would be tweaking what we have and supplementing what we have rather than because we don't have the time or the money to redo the whole review process and then adopt a new
And
material.
not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna, are you able to pull up, just because I don't know that you guys have seen, the slide of all your boxes and colors of your,
Maybe they haven't.
you know, the schedule of how you do the curriculum
The
review
review,
versus because it's very, it's a very prescribed process that she
Yeah,
uses to make sure that she's, you know, now we go back and review everything, and now we go back and, you know, check out new things and,
it's a multi-year thing.
yeah.
And it's
That's-
built
that's
this way,
what-
yes.
Yes.
It's built this way largely because of budgeting and also because of teacher bandwidth, right? Like, we can't do all of the subject areas at one time for teachers. They teach everything. I feel bad when I call them generalists because they're not. I feel like they're experts in everything that they do, but they have to know a lot about a lot of subjects. So we have 5 different steps in our process. The first is research, then we write and revise, which is where we are right now. 3, we would implement. 4, we would audit that. 5, we would monitor. Sometimes we monitor for a couple of years. If standards change, if things change, and we need to hold on to something a little bit longer, we need to speed up. We're ahead of the game with NGSS deal standards because we're going to implement in its actual year of implementation. So that's huge, that our kids would get a different type of instruction for 2 years before they would take that PSSA. And so it's not as easy as we're just going to go with a new product. We would have to tweak and make, adjustments to what we have with Amplify.
But I think this is a good representation, just for you guys to see that, there is that like level of follow through and audit and.
And again, that was what I was alluding to earlier when I don't know that existed. a long time
It
ago.
did. I got it right from, the existing documents when I got here.
Well, I
But
mean,
it's hard to stick to.
I mean,
things
before
like
that.
COVID pop up.
I
Oh, yeah,
mean,
before
before
that,
that.
maybe.
Yeah.
And then things like COVID happened and the whole cycle gets thrown off for a number of years.
Well, and science wasn't reviewed in the elementary science because you had adopted everyday math and your
Benchmark.
ELA benchmark simultaneously. And I think there were threats if I was to introduce an elementary science program. So
Yeah.
it's been a long time since K-5 had this discussion.
The other thing I wanted to make sure we showed is that we're not adopting the full curriculum. We don't have time to teach a full Amplify product. There's just not time for science. I mean, they did some great math for me so we could figure out how to make it fit in existing instructional minutes. So you can see that for each grade level, there are 2, maybe 3, I think 3rd grade has 3 and 4th grade has 3 units of anywhere from 4 to 5 units in a given grade level. They were chosen for a number of reasons. 1, because they appeal to kids. 2, because teachers didn't have to kill themselves prepping. That's a real thing. And sometimes they're still gonna have to do a lot. I don't wanna say like they're off the hook now, they're still doing a lot. But anywhere then where we found we weren't hitting a STEEL standard, we came up with some type of supplemental activity, something they'd already been using, something from Bill Nye, something from Mystery Science, even Gizmos that we've been using for a number of years to supplement that. What I love, and I almost called you Shay, how about that, Sarah?
You guys spend too much time together.
I do that all the time. I do it to her and Shay all the time. But pushes and pulls, that's physics. That's physics in kindergarten. I mean, that's amazing that our kids are going to get those physics concepts. That might have helped me in high school physics. I was abysmal. So light and sound, all of those things in the 4 areas of science we think about: earth science, space science, physical science, and life science. Those 4 strands are critically important. The only one that ever gets tested for kids specifically is life science and biology in 9th and 10th grade. So we want them to get exposure to all of those so that they're building a foundational knowledge of those 4 strands of science standards. Young.
There's one other question, I think. I'll have to see if I can find it. And I think it was about the computer time, but you didn't feel like there was probably a lot of computer time. It
I don't
wouldn't
think there's
replace the
any computer
teacher.
time for the kids.
I was saying kindergarten, I think there's.
I mean, if you're using computers, you're projecting mainly, but then you're switching to the
Maybe like
hands-on.
the big trade book,
Right.
so they can all see it, but they'll have copies,
Yeah.
I believe, for them to like partner read,
Right.
and read along with us, so they're not on the computer.
The books. Is that what you're
The big books that like concept, I know we have,
Yeah.
like, it's called the Nature Walk, and it introduces them to the 5 senses, and then it goes into like plants and animals, and so they actually go on a nature like walk, so they're out.
Which is great for energy and K. It's
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
go outside and breathe.
Especially
air.
full day.
Fifth grade too.
Yeah. 5th grade too. And I just wonder, Liz, when you looked at it, was there anything that you saw that was, because there was a whole bucket there of, hands-on activities and all the teachers' books were there. So I see that you brought that, but I wonder what your thoughts were as you were looking at it. Were there things that you were?
When I looked through it, I was like, I don't know if there's a computer demo or something that they look at, because when I read this, so maybe it is.
Yeah,
they
I don't think
revamped it
we're
since
comparing the
2019.
same product.
Yeah.
Or at least how we plan to utilize it. I don't think there is a way to put kids on.
We don't want our kids on more technology.
No, that's not. That's good. Yeah, because I was thinking, well, if the computer's teaching them, then what would happen to the teacher? And we don't want to get rid of the teacher because that is so important, that one-on-one interaction with your students is so
I
important.
think it's more like the student learning through their own hands and their own imagination. Exploration. Thank you. That's what I was saying.
And different iterations, right, Tony? There are so many new words we learned.
Iteration.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're going to start using the word engineers. Kids are going to know what engineers are and they don't drive trains. I mean, they do, but there's also another meaning of the word. So they get to be engineers starting in kindergarten. That's really cool.
So they will have a lab, like with each section.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. They love
That's fun, hands-on.
That's the one thing I saw when I was looking at it. Engineers, they play engineers, and you're like,
And it's the design process. We're going to brainstorm and we're going to think of a plan, we're going to implement the plan, we're going to see if it works, adjust it, and probably do iteration. Like it's a whole, it's the process they use in high school. Yeah. What I think is very great about this and the way that our teachers teach is kids will know it's okay to take a chance and not get it right. Our kids will understand that you learn by failing. You learn by trying, looking, adjusting, thinking. And Sarah's going to have the solution this time, and Amy's going to have the solution next time. So in a very safe environment with our teachers encouraging them, they get to learn how to fail, learn, and try again. I think that's one of the greatest things that I saw.
Really good.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Do you have the names of the
I do.
vendors that you did look at?
Yeah. Do you want me to read them to you?
Please.
Sure. We can look at Discovery,
Okay.
which is Discovery Education that we know of. They joined with Mystery Science. We looked at FOSS, Next Generation. We looked at TCI. It's Teachers, somebody help me, Curriculum, I forget what it stands for, I'm sorry. We looked at Amplify. We looked at Gizmos. In the lower grades, it's called Science for Us. And both Gizmos and Mystery Science / Discovery didn't have enough meat to it, like to be a core curriculum product.
That was a lot online.
Yeah, and that was a lot.
online.
Same with TCI, yeah.
Teachers Curriculum Institute.
Teachers Curriculum Institute, thank you. And then our kindergarten teachers, because we've gone to full day K, they had found a really great program, Little Science Thinkers, but it only ran K to 2, and though there was a lot of good stuff about that, and I think we'll still borrow and use some of that where we need to supplement, there wasn't anything for grades 3 and above. And so they were great and compromised and said,
So much for cutting.
go ahead, Sarah.
I was just,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we felt that it was important to have a curriculum that spanned and the kids were introduced to vocabulary and from K to 5 and not like, well, we have this for K to 2 and then 3 to 5 had to pick something else. Like these kids are going to start that engineering process from the very beginning and then carry it on throughout. And so we wanted to support our grades that are going to be tested in the SSAs, and so we felt the best way to do that is if we have one continuous program between K to 5.
And I think that was one of the things you're saying that, and it's reminding me that that's one of the things that we talked about in the last few years, is that whole continuum and the continuity, so that one thing goes into the next, and we did that school-wide, like from one school to the next school to the
Yeah,
next
consistency
school.
across schools, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sarah, that information and links are, that's in the board update this next week. It'll be there, this week, I believe, too. So if you want to explore those.
And it wasn't that we didn't like any of them, there were good, I mean, you can look at the rubrics, there were positives and there were negatives. In the end, it was our front runner, and the more we talked about it, and then the more we learned about it, that it was truly the only one that they would consider aligned with Steele's, that was really compelling for us. No sense getting a product that doesn't have that alignment. There's a lot of more work for us to do that. And quite frankly, when you're teaching every subject, you need something that has the robustness. Nothing's perfect. There's always supplements needed, but we needed a robust program. I will say, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, we did have about a dozen people come and look at the product as they were looking. They asked some questions. Nobody left, and I will do a better job next time. I feel like we should have a sheet where they can leave some feedback, because maybe they just didn't want to say it to me, but everybody, asked a whole bunch of questions. So I didn't get any feedback per se, but we had about a dozen people, lots of questions, and we were able to. I know you fielded a couple for me, and Alan, you did when I wasn't around one day. So we did have a lot of people look. Nobody has contacted me about anything, and that was what we said we were going to report back on. We'll leave it open, we'll see what the public has said, so I wanted to report out on that as well.
Is any of it online at all? Because when I contacted Amplify, they sent me, I think it was first grade, I looked into the one slideshow, it was on shadows. I didn't see anything out of normal. So I didn't know how much, if any, was online. You're saying nothing?
So-
Because they sent me slideshows.
Well, the teacher can show a slideshow as she's, or he, are presenting a concept.
Have you seen them? Okay. So you saw the shadows one?
No, I'm not first grade. I am first grade. I did the shadows one, I went through all of module 1,
Okay.
which is the animal and plant defenses, and then I'm trying to figure out how to do the third one, which is all about daytime, nighttime, how the sky looks different.
So that can come up on your whiteboard?
Yeah.
You probably saw some teacher resources.
Yeah.
Like that whole big
Right,
box.
exactly.
It's a big teacher resource to use.
Yes.
Kids are not online on their.
And then, quite frankly, maybe they could be. I mean, I saw some things where like it was drop and drag type of
Yeah,
activities, but yeah.
Right.
It was the student slides.
Yeah.
But when we like write the curriculum, what's actually being taught in the classroom, does it, like, we're not following, like, turning the page in the book and it says, like, you have to do this part, like, we can opt out of doing that. And I think that we as this committee have decided that we want kids in science, doing science, and not on a computer simulating science.
So in addition to this work that they've done, because they get bored. In addition to the work that they've done and looking at the resource, we've built a curriculum. Each one of these grades has a curriculum document with the exact activities that they're going to be doing, with the essential questions like, why are we doing this? We talked about your why 100 times tonight. You have to give them kind of context for the content, and we do that through essential questions and enduring understandings. Like, why would I want to know this? Why is this important to me? So the whole curriculum is built around those. Some we took from Amplify. Most we might have taken from Amplify because they were pretty good. But it's very specific to what we're pulling out of here. So as Sarah said, it's not just turn the page, turn the page. And that's what makes, I think, it unique, because we knew we couldn't do the whole program. And so from their lens of experience, thinking about their students, they were really able to pick and choose. And we may tweak it, right? Like, we may look at that and go, that was a colossal mistake. That's why, you know, I doubt it, but there might be some things we want to tweak, and we say that. Teach with Post-it notes your first year. Whatever you did that went well, whatever you didn't do, we want to come back, we want to look at that, we want to make those adjustments, update the curriculum, and make sure we're moving forward. And that's why I said we wouldn't usually ever abandon a program, because we don't have the funds to re-up another program or the time to devote to rewriting a whole curriculum, because this one's based on Amplify. But we certainly tweak all the time. Because there's one thing on paper, and then it's like, sometimes it doesn't go the way you want it to. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
One more question on the money aspect. Are you familiar with Hillsdale?
College?
They offer free curriculum. I'm actually using it, I'm homeschooling one of my boys next year, and using Hillsdale, they offer free curriculum, so I wasn't sure if you knew about it.
I don't think I knew that they had free curriculum. I'm familiar with the school.
I'll have to send you some info, but it's out there. I'm going to be utilizing it next year. There is training, you can link up with them, there's licenses you can get. So.
Yeah, it's certainly
I'll give
something
you
we
some
can
more
layer
info.
into when we start to look at products. That's certainly
I'm just
something.
saying for cost aspect, it's out there. There is free available.
And just to make sure, too, this is a budgeted amount
It
of
is,
money,
yeah.
so it's not any money that is above and beyond sort of what was budgeted. So at least that we know it's not
Yeah.
going, in excess of what
And
we had planned.
I just want to say, because I'm nervous about next year, we do ELA, we do research next year, that's $500,000 to do K-5 ELA. I mean, it is a big expense, so.
That's free.
Yeah, we want to take a look at, what meets the standards, and, because that's Chicago? Michigan.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
did they meet Pennsylvania standards?
That's my only fear, because
I asked for that in writing,
the crosswalk.
so once I get that, I will get that to you.
Yeah. It's a lot to make sure we have the resources that teachers need. Sarah talked about big books. In kindergarten, there are big books, and we use them in almost every subject area, social studies and science. So I appreciate the time and the attention. I think this has been a really good dialogue, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And I thank the teachers. And you guys, go. It's late. You've given enough of your time.
But if you want some pizza.
Yes.
It's cold. But cold pizza's good pizza, all the time.
Thank you so much, ladies, I really appreciate it. Yeah, bright and early, Tony, 7:45.
Thank you very much, guys, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, in the interest of time,
Okay. I'm so sorry.
we have got 5, 6, and 7 to go, which is really just more informational. I don't know if you guys just want to. Oh, are you looking, do we have?
Oh, we had made a motion last time, but I just want to make sure that's okay to put on the board agenda for the 20th, for
So if
Thursday.
you want to repeat it, you did, but what we said is we would bring it back, so I don't know if you just want to make another motion and get it formulated.
I'm making a motion to put it on the board agenda.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to put the
You'd like
material
a motion?
adoption of Amplify on the board workshop on the
Yes, please,
24th
yes, thank you.
agenda.
I'll second it.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion moves forward. It's going to be put on the agenda for approval.
So these are two quick items. Professional development, we've been involved with TLS for a number of years. There's some information going to the board this Friday. It'll show you the contract. They do professional development. If you've heard Chris's presentation about schools to watch and different data presentations that you've heard from the middle school and high school, they speak very highly of this training that their teachers have had. We've worked through small cohorts of teachers, and we're just about on that last group of teachers. So we'd be asking to extend that into next school year. The contract is just around $107,000, about $80,000 of which is paid for through our Title II funding. So the hit to the local budget is right around $30, which again is in our budget. Moving forward, it's been budgeted for. What did I say? $30. $30. That's So, yeah, it's only $30 to the local budget, but it's about $30,000 to the local budget. So everything you need to know, I put a little information about who they are and what they are, and I put that contract in for your review. I don't know, we've approved it for a number of years, but there are some new folks. I wanted to make sure they understood who TLS was. They primarily focus on differentiated instruction, which is, I don't know, that's still pretty important in education. I think we have to make sure we're meeting kids where they are. They use an acronym called ARE. It's Assessment Driven, Responsive, and Engaging. So they're looking at how students are doing on their assessments, be they formative or what they're observing in class, and then they're responding to what they're seeing in that, and then they're engaging students at the correct level of difficulty, which is one of the things that keeps students engaged in class. Knowing where they are, meeting them where they are, and planning instruction around that. Because we've done it in small groups, only 12 to 14 teachers in a specific cohort means they all get to know each other, and then coaching can happen in the classroom as follow-up. That's what research says makes instruction, change in instruction last. When you're doing professional development, you don't want to do the drive-by, you want to do follow-up, and we've been doing this year after year. So even if a cohort's done, they still do some things as follow-up activities the next year. And we're just about on our last cohort for middle school and high school, which means everybody will be trained on TLS, and so we're doing some maintenance training after that. The element that they're bringing forward this year, which is different, they're going to be looking at AI. Jim, you and I have to have a conversation with Pete about what is allowable here and what is not allowable. But we know it's a part of everyone's life right now, so how do we as teachers kind of leverage that and keep our students kind of understanding that there's no critical aspect to AI, there's the person that makes a critical, creative work of maybe what AI is sharing with them. There's also work that's done with the administrative team, because if we're going to do walkthroughs and see how teachers are doing in the classroom, they have to have that same language, they have to have that same training. And the last thing they offer us is a website which aligns teaching practices with the Danielson rubric, which is what every district in PA uses for evaluation. So they've built that for us with a series of look for. So if I go into look for student engagement in the classroom, if I go into look for certain things, they've aligned that with the rubric to make it easier for administrators. So I wanted to let you know what that was. I'd love to put that on the agenda for May 9th, but we'll have, I don't know if we'll meet before then. So I'm hoping to be able to put that forward on May 9th.
The board's probably familiar with TLS from an internal conversation about whole group instruction and individual coaching.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Program at the end.
That's what I thought was the TLS.
Yeah, that was TLS, that ongoing level of support.
Okay.
The whole group and then the individual coaching with teachers to improve their individual lessons.
So I didn't want to project the contract, but it'll be in the board update. You'll have a link to see all of that with the explanation that I just said, hopefully more articulate in writing. And I just shared.
Thanks, Kim.
So if we could get that on, if there's objections to it, I mean, we can pull it later, but I wanted to make sure, I don't think we'll meet again before the 9th, and I wanted people to have time to look and take it all in.
So I'm going to entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Oh,
I'll second it.
You'll second it to move the TLS contract for 24-25 onto the board agenda.
For May 9th,
For
yes.
May 9th. Okay?
Sounds like a plan.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any discussion? Nope. Any discussion before we're opposed? Okay. Then we'll move that one forward to the agenda. For May 9th, but not till
Yes.
May 9th.
Correct. That's our regular.
I would just say the continuum of services that we're used to and makes a good transition to continue, to keep going with the same theories, forms, just as a general housekeeping rule.
A lot of the things that Frank talked about that we'll be planning for, a lot of it has to do with in-class instruction. And so I think it's really important that they all have that same language to choose and strategies to think about for all the learners in the classroom. And then state assessment update. I put this on and then I took it off and now I can put it back on, I guess. There was an announcement today by the governor of Pennsylvania that PSSAs will be changing. I don't have, oh, actually I have it on my phone. So that they're going to be changing and it, did you say that on my phone?
Maybe.
They're changing to online. They're forcing us to go online in 2 years. Did you have it pulled up, Andrea?
Yep.
So I always said we'd go kicking and screaming through time, so I'm going to be kicking and screaming now. Jim too. It's a lot of work for our tech department. So students will now have to take the PSSA online. They plan to make a series of improvements. They plan to make the test shorter. Most of the open-ended pieces will be going away, which,
Oh, good.
yeah, well, I mean, it's good and bad. I have lots of thoughts about it. I need to digest a little bit more. They sent the email out yesterday and said, don't share this until 1 o'clock today. And then they didn't make the announcement. I don't think it was until 6 o'clock tonight, which is why I wasn't sure I could
I
share
wasn't
it.
supposed to share that yesterday.
What did I share?
I wasn't.
Oh, you were. Actually, I got it from somebody besides you. I got it from somebody at PDE, so you're
That's
covered.
good, thank you.
I didn't forward yours, I forwarded hers. I'm just kidding. So I just wanted to let you know that's happening. In a lot of ways, it will save a lot of time in the building. For example, our tests are starting Monday, and our principals and our school counselors and our secretaries have been labeling booklets and separating booklets and despiraling booklets and creating totes. And I mean, the work that goes into that it's voluminous. I don't know that I can quite explain that to you. So going online will take a lot of that work out. They still have to do online slips for kids. So there's a piece of preparation there, but it's way different. So that's a positive. Making them shorter, that's positive. Means more time for instruction. So there are lots of good things in there, but I want to digest it a little bit more. I just wanted to, it's breaking news, y'all. We didn't have this meeting today, you'd be late to find out.
She was going kicking and screaming, but as a principal of 10 years who had to sticker hundreds of books, I was,
Yes.
yes, today it was a win.
We're also pitching it as a savings to the state.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
You know, from all the paper.
I mean, that's a lot of printing to be done.
Oh, yeah, shipping too.
But I also, let's send well wishes to our students. They will be engaging in PSSA testing over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We try to tell them it's a show what you know. You know, there's no extra pressure, it's just to show what you know. And to have them kind of not get super upset about it. It's just an assessment. And we look at multiple measures, so it's just one piece of that. So that starts Monday.
Is the PSSA then, since it'll be online, will every student get the exact same one, or is it one, you know, like how?
I do. I think they'll still have different forms of the test. I don't think that'll change. Like they have now, they have a form 1 through 7, and there's 7 different versions of it. I don't think that will change.
So it won't change, like the student is getting the wrong answer.
And that was one of the things they said couldn't happen. Like
Okay.
if I'm doing it on the computer, there's no misalignment, right? Like here's my question, here's my answer, here's my question, here's my answer. So yeah, a few different versions, yeah. One of the things they also did this year to try to improve that is the booklets in so the answer booklets with the thing, there's not 2 separate booklets in all cases, but there's one Keystone exam that is that way and the other 2 will be that way next year, right before they go online. So they did try to, that was a big problem, was the misalignment of forms.
Liz, were you asking about the consistency of question though?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that they're going to just be fairly consistent. Like you're just gonna have to answer what's given to you, even if you're incorrect.
Yeah, you keep getting them wrong. It's just, it's not gonna give you easy.
It's not
gonna
computer adapted.
Yeah, it's not adaptive. I think it'll be just true to form. That's the test.
Yeah.
What they'll do is if I'm taking it and you're next to me, we'll each have a different
Yeah.
first question. And then when we get to the same question, my answers will be jumbled, your answers will be jumbled. Like, that's how they'll differentiate people from having those different forms from.
They are also saying they're coming out with a benchmark, which will be very aligned with that, which might be very helpful. I mean, right now, we use MAP testing and we use Lincoln benchmarks for projected proficiency, as you saw Frank share tonight. Sometimes they don't line up. Sometimes they're pretty close, but this would be the same test maker doing the benchmark and giving the state assessment. So I think there's some real positives that will come out of it. I still just want to digest a lot of what they put in there.
Does that help you with then if a lot of kids are missing a certain question, then it goes, the teacher can assess it and go back and say, hey.
Well, the teacher can't know. They can't know what's happening on PSSAs. We will get the results afterwards, and we'll be like, wow, that standard was a problem. So then we can go back. And they also said we'll get results afterwards. So rather than wait for July.
I think the whole, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, just so you guys know, the meeting in September, October
usually.
is the meeting where this, again, why this committee is awesome, is they review all of that. They go through all the standards and how we scored and what the plans are to then go back and say, okay, we really did bad on this standard, you know, we need to improve in these areas, or this is an area where we've improved over the past several years and this is how we've done it. And they do it by, the principals come in and they speak by school, by grade, and so it's really, I'll give you guys an extra heads up when that meeting is, because it's really informative.
What we are asking about is information we can get from a benchmark.
Yeah.
So we can dive into the benchmarks a little bit more and get actionable data to kind of go back and reteach students. When it comes to the main PSSA, those results come in so late, and we don't have that level of intimacy with the questions and stuff on the PSSA, so we kind of use that for forward planning and next year's crew by the time we get that data. But a benchmark would give us a little bit more information to dive in where we might need to reteach and review.
And if it's good, they said it's free,
Yeah.
which is always appealing.
That's
We'll take it. Okay, so that's all I'm done. That's the end of me, unless you have more questions.
Parent engagement session?
Yeah, so next Wednesday, we have an autism panel for autistic support teachers, district behavior specialists, speech therapists, school psychologists will all be presenting on their roles, working with students with autism in our school district K-12. So we've put that out in our email blasts, and we're very excited about it.
Where is it?
It's here at the Ed Center, 6 to 7:30, April 24th. Be there, be square.
All right. Anything from the public or anyone else in the audience before we adjourn? Go ahead.
How you doing?
Good.
I had a question with, talking about that you had 5 programs. You mentioned core, and then you mentioned Align. And my question is, do all those programs that you've chosen all align with core curriculum?
I'm sorry.
Or must what you're choosing align with core curriculum?
So you mean standards?
Standards,
Yeah, yeah. Everything that we do as a part of the curriculum review process is work toward aligning whatever the resource is to the standards. Did that answer your question? I'm not sure I understood it.
Well, my question is, programs that you chose all align with core values, core curriculum, core, you know, back when I was on school, it was Common Core.
Oh.
And my question is, Sarah mentioned something about Hillsdale, and was that not looked at because it's not one of the listed
I
programs?
didn't know about it. I mean, generally, when we look at ELA or science, we look at, first we spend some time looking at what the needs are, what has served us well, what hasn't served us well, and then the teachers go out and look around a little bit. I do some research to see which ones are aligned and which ones would be good at, because the number one thing we have to look at is it aligned with the standards? So PA core standards were adopted in 2013 based on the Common Core standards. PA always does something a little bit different. So there was Common Core, and they made it PA Core, and they did change some of the things. So our curriculum is aligned with PA Core. And where we find gaps and where we find things that might not be as rigorous, we continue to tweak until they're even better aligned. When we did science this time, we were looking at aligning with the STEEL standards, which Pennsylvania just adopted as their science standards based on the national NGSS. And of course, they changed some things. So I'm not sure I answered the question, but yeah, we have to align with the standards.
You have, it's a
We have
must,
to.
you have to align with PA, so
Yeah.
that could be,
Yeah, potentially problematic. A lot of times there's a lot of our textbooks come from Texas and California.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they will give us, here's the Pennsylvania crosswalk. Here in this book or in this resource is where these particular units and activities align with PA standards. So that's not uncommon, that we have to do a Pennsylvania crosswalk. And actually Amplify did a wonderful job of that. They have a full document. So we were sure when we went in, it's one of the better ones that I've seen done. It's a whole booklet here talking about where Amplify meets the STEEL standards. So it was very easy for us to say, yes, we're covering that one. Ooh, that's a gap. We need to look at that and we need to fill it in. For example, one of the grade levels was missing something about weather, and we said, well, let's talk about it in morning meeting, which they probably do anyway. And so we're able to address it that way. But this was a really nice crosswalk between all the standards and here's where you would meet them through PA. And I think that's what, Sarah, you're saying Hillsdale is providing for you, how it meets Pennsylvania.
So are Pennsylvania standards more stringent or less than the other states?
It's, in the terms of steels, they're just the same. They made different colors. I'm telling you, I don't understand what's different about it. In PA Core, they did move some things to 5th grade or to 4th grade. They're in 5th grade in Common Core. So they did do some shifting, particularly in the area of math. So we have to look at that very carefully when we do it. And when we go through the review, we have EDM, which is a pretty old resource, and Benchmark, which is a pretty old resource. They have updated versions since then that are even more aligned. Just like we said, it looks good on paper, then you go to do it, and you decide you can do it better. So, did that answer your question?
oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Anybody else? Nope. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
All right, any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Have pizza. I don't want to take it out. Why did you?
I don't know in the middle of the evening. There's no film.
Did somebody just?